first light of the Roman dawn spills across the marble floor like molten gold. It crawls between the columns of your atrium, brushing over mosaics that tell the old stories. Mars and Venus locked in their eternal dance, Romulus and Remus suckling beneath the she-wolf shadow. The birth of the city that became the heart of the world. You wake before the slaves stir. Years of discipline, or perhaps the faint ache of age, make sleep light, restless. The silence of the villa is vast. Even the fountains whisper softly, as if reluctant to disturb the weight of history pressing upon these walls. You rise slowly, the linen of your tunic whispering against your skin. Your hand traces the cool surface of the wall, feeling the faint tremor of life beyond it. The distant clatter of carts on the Via Appia, the rhythmic tread of soldiers beginning their morning drill, the low hum of the city awakening. It is another day in Rome, the center of all things, and you, Lucius Aelius Varro, are one of its chosen voices. A senator, a guardian of the republic that is no longer a republic, a servant of an empire that pretends to be eternal. Your chamber slave, Diodorus, enters quietly. He is Greek, educated, efficient, and silent when he should be. His movements are almost invisible. He lays out your garments for the day, adjusts the folds of your toga, and offers a cup of watered wine infused with honey and herbs. You drink slowly, tasting the warmth of the sun-dried grapes, the faint bitterness of time. The flavor reminds you of your youth, of the provinces, of your father's villa in Latium, where the air smelled of olives and sea salt rather than incense and marble dust. Has word come from the Forum? You ask, your voice still rough with sleep. Yes, Dominus, Diodorus replies, bowing slightly. The Curia will convene at the 3rd hour. There's talk of the Emperor's envoy attending. The Emperor. His name lingers in the air like a blade half drawn. You nod, though a coldness slips beneath your ribs. The Emperor's envoys seldom attend without purpose, and never without the scent of fear following them. You step out into the peristyle garden. The air is cool and clean, perfumed with laurel and myrtle. A pair of doves coo softly on the fountain's edge, pecking at the crumbs left from last night's meal. Servants move through the colonnade in near silence, sweeping, watering, polishing. Every gesture in this house, every breath, exists to maintain the illusion of control, the image of Roman dignity. You pause by the pond where koi flash beneath the surface like fragments of living gold. In their movement, you see the rhythm of Rome itself. Beauty, hunger, motion without rest. For a moment, you allow yourself to breathe. The city beyond your villa walls is already roaring to life. The cries of vendors, the bark of dogs, the clang of smiths' hammers, the same chaos that feeds the order you represent. And yet, beneath it all, there's a subtle tension, a hum that has nothing to do with trade or traffic. You felt it for months now, that trembling unease in the city's pulse. The Emperor grows restless, the provinces whisper of revolt, and the Senate, for all its marble and rhetoric, grows increasingly hollow. Your wife, Livia, joins you by the fountain, her hair gathered in braids, her eyes still touched by sleep. You're awake early, she says, her voice soft but knowing. Again, the mind doesn't rest as easily as the body. You reply. She smiles faintly. Nor does ambition. You share a moment of quiet, the kind of silence that years of marriage makes comfortable, even tender. She pours you more wine, her movements graceful, deliberate. Behind her, two maids adjust the folds of her stola, whispering in low tones about the latest gossip from the Palatine. Livia pays them no mind. You will speak today, she says, not as a question but as a certainty. About the grain supply? You nod. The people must eat, even when the legions march east. Bread keeps peace longer than swords. She meets your gaze, eyes steady. Then choose your words carefully. The Emperor's men hunger too. By the 2nd hour, the villa hums with purpose. Slaves rush to prepare your litter, polishing the bronze handles, brushing the crimson cloth. A stable boy grooms the horses until their coats gleam like polished stone. The scent of olive oil, leather, and morning sun fills the air. As you step into the street, The city embraces you with its noise, its motion, its life. Rome is awake now, fully, gloriously awake. The streets pulse with humanity. Vendors shouting over figs and fish, children darting between carts, soldiers swaggering in armor that catches the light. The smell of baking bread mingles with smoke and sweat. From every corner comes the sound of Latin, sharp, disciplined, alive, punctuated by the lilting tones of Greek, the guttural consonants of the Gauls, the soft cadence of Egyptians. The empire speaks in many tongues, but all of them bend to Rome. You ride through it all, half hidden behind the crimson curtains of your litter, yet fully aware of the eyes that follow. Respect, envy, hatred. It's impossible to tell which burns brighter. At the Forum, the world seems to tilt upward. Columns rise like frozen thunderbolts, carved with the faces of men who dreamed of eternity and sometimes achieved it. Statues of gods watch from every corner, their marble gazes serene, indifferent. You dismount, your sandals clicking against the stone. The Senate awaits. Inside the Curia, the air is heavy with incense and pride. Rows of senators, draped in white togas marked by purple bands, murmur among themselves. The marble floor gleams like still water, reflecting the light from the oculus above. You take your place among them, not at the front, not at the rear, just close enough to be heard when you choose to speak, far enough to listen when others reveal too much. The Princeps Senatus rises, calling the assembly to order. The sound of his voice rolls through the chamber like a slow drumbeat. The debate begins: grain shipments, tax reforms, border unrest, rumors of treachery in the provinces. But beneath every word, beneath every careful gesture, lies one unspoken truth. Every man here serves not the Republic, but the Emperor's shadow. As the discussion swells, your mind drifts, not from boredom, but from the weight of recognition. You remember when the Senate's voice could make or break kings. When Rome was a living debate, not a gilded echo. Now most men here are actors, their speeches rehearsed, their loyalty bought. Still, some play their parts well. You lean forward, listening to Senator Publius argue for increased grain imports from Egypt. His rhetoric is flawless, but you can hear the tremor in his tone. He's afraid. Perhaps he's been promised something, or threatened. In Rome, both often come from the same hand. When your turn comes to speak, you rise. The room stills. Your words are careful, measured. You speak of balance, of Rome's greatness lying not in its conquest, but in its endurance. You quote Cicero, mention the wisdom of the old republic, invoke the gods without appearing superstitious. When you finish, there is a murmur of approval, soft, uncertain, but real. Even the envoy from the emperor watches you a moment longer than is comfortable. By the time the sun reaches its zenith, the session adjourns. You step outside, blinking against the brightness. The marble of the Forum gleams, almost blinding. The heat rises from the stones, carrying the smell of dust and empire. You feel both powerful and hollow. For all your influence, you are but one man in the machinery of eternity. Yet still, you walk with purpose, because in Rome, purpose is survival. You glance toward the capital, where Jupiter's temple crowns the hill. The gods may be silent, but their city still stands. For now, that is enough. As you return to your villa, the streets again roar around you. Children play in the shadows of triumphal arches. Soldiers laugh outside taverns. Women haggle over amphorae of oil. Life flows, unstoppable. The same tide that carried Romulus, that raised Caesar, that now serves the will of an emperor whose face is stamped upon every coin. You step into your home, into the cool embrace of shadow and marble. Diodorus meets you with a bow and offers fresh wine. You drink, tasting both victory and futility in its sweetness. Tomorrow will come. The Senate will convene again. And you, Lucius Aelius Varro, servant of Rome, will rise once more, as the city demands, as eternity expects. ChatGPT, Harika, Sunrise, SimD Section 2. In the shadow of the Forum Basileir. Aini Amlatim Tarzini Koriakajum, Yani Cinematic, Akinsi Gshiu. Amlatamila, Detali Batimlamiller, Ixel de Sunseler V, Domen Atmosferini Yasidakak Bisimd. Ubalam Senado Yisi Olarak Roma Forum Anagidison, Halkan Gazleri Altindi Yuriusin Vomuazam Giusi Merkazin Gitsin Sabah Satleri and Ladalakak. Section 2. In the shadow of the Forum. The marble steps are still cool beneath your sandals when you step into the street. The air is crisp, tinged with the faint smell of olive oil and wet stone. Dawn light spills over the rooftops, gilding every column and statue with the sheen of awakening empire. You tighten your toga, the crimson border heavy against your shoulder, and begin your walk toward the Forum. The city hums softly at this hour, merchants setting out baskets of figs, bakers pulling the first loaves from the oven, slaves sweeping the thresholds of Domus and Taberna alike. As you move through the streets, heads turn, the insignia of your rank, a golden ring, a narrow band of purple, draws quiet deference. A woman pauses mid-step to bow. A child tugs at his mother's sleeve, whispering your name. You nod, composed but distant. Respect is the currency of the Senate, but distance is its armor. The Forum appears before you, vast, solemn, eternal. Pillars rise like frozen hymns, their fluted edges catching the light of a new day. Beyond them, the Curia waits. Heart of the Republic, though the pulse of empire now beats faster than law can contain. Inside, the murmurs of men fill the hall. You can feel the heat of discourse already brewing. Alliances shifting, promises whispered like daggers. The air is thick with the scent of wax and parchment, ambition and fear. A fellow senator greets you, his smile polite but eyes sharp. Another day, another empire to manage, he says lightly. You return the courtesy, both of you knowing the weight behind the jest. The Curia's marble benches gleam in the morning light, filtering through the high windows. You take your place, your hand resting on the cool stone, tracing the faint grooves carved by centuries of debates. You imagine Cicero's voice echoing still, somewhere in the dust of this room. Words that once shaped destiny. The session begins. Aediles and quaestors rise in turn, presenting petitions. Grain shortages in Ostia, unrest in Gaul, taxation disputes in the East. Each issue is another thread in the vast tapestry of rule. Threads that must be managed, woven, never allowed to fray. You listen, speak when needed, your voice measured, deliberate. You've learned in the Senate, silence can wield more power than speech. Every word is a coin, spent too freely, and you're left with nothing. By mid-morning, the debate grows heated. Voices rise, fists pound marble. A young senator invokes the gods, too dramatically for your taste. You watch, detached yet observant, as politics plays out like theater. You've come to realize that Rome itself is built on performance, discipline, rhetoric, illusion. Outside, you can hear the faint roar of the marketplace. Rome breathes beyond these walls, a living organism, hungry, vast, impossible to tame. And you, one of its arteries, must keep the blood flowing. You glance toward the high-arched window. The sunlight has sharpened, striking the bronze statues that guard the Forum. One depicts Jupiter, thunderbolt raised. Another, a triumphant Caesar. The shadows stretch across the floor like reminders. Power, though divine or mortal, always casts a cost. When the session adjourns, you rise slowly, your joints aching slightly, not from age, but from the weight of the Republic itself pressing down through generations. Outside, the city is fully awake now. You descend the steps into a river of citizens, plebeians and patricians alike. Somewhere, a street orator declaims about justice. Children run laughing with clay coins. A soldier, dusty from the frontier, kneels before a statue to offer thanks. You breathe it all in: marble, sweat, incense, ambition. Rome, the center of the world, and you, one of its keepers. You wonder, not for the first time, whether history remembers man or merely the marble they leave behind. By mid-morning, the streets of Rome thrum with life, and you make your way toward the Forum, the very heart of the Republic's affairs. The air hums with debate, gossip, and commerce. Merchants shout over one another. Philosophers argue beneath the porticos, and messengers dart between marble columns carrying sealed scrolls. The clatter of sandals on stone mingles with the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. You are not merely an observer here. You are part of the machinery that keeps this colossal empire functioning. As a senator, your toga is your badge of status, its folds crisp and heavy, symbolizing both dignity and duty. The people recognize the garment. Some bow their heads as you pass. Others eye you with a mixture of reverence and resentment. For in this city, power is admired, but it is also feared. Within the Senate House, the heat rises quickly. Voices echo across marble walls, men gesturing passionately as they dispute land reforms, tax collection, and military campaigns in faraway provinces. You take your place among them, your wax tablet resting on your knee, your stylus ready. The discussions are sharp, political alliances fragile. Each word can shift the balance of favor or spark a rival's wrath. As the sun climbs higher, the debate intensifies. You rise to speak, choosing your words with care. You know that eloquence is both a weapon and a shield in Rome. To sway the Senate is to shape history. To falter is to invite ruin. The murmurs quiet as you present your argument, measured, deliberate, layered with subtle flattery and logic. By noon, the session adjourns. You leave the Curia with your pulse still racing. The Senate stone steps are warm beneath your sandals, and the light of the Roman sun feels almost blinding after hours in debate. Around you, the Forum continues to buzz, a living monument to Rome's power and ambition, and you, one of its architects, stride through it, both exalted and burdened by the weight of your station. The marble pillars of the Curia stand like ancient sentinels against the mid-morning sun, their pale surfaces reflecting the golden light of the eternal city. You step through the great bronze doors, and the murmurs of Rome's most powerful men rise to meet you like the low hum of distant thunder. The air inside is heavy with the scent of oil lamps and the faint musk of woolen togas, hundreds of them, gathered in restless expectation. As a senator of Rome, your place is among equals, but never among friends. Politics in this chamber is a battlefield without swords. Words are your weapons, rhetoric your armor. You take your seat upon the marble benches, adjusting the purple-trimmed folds of your toga. The Curia, though vast, feels small today. Tension clings to its walls like smoke. At the far end, the consul rises. His voice echoes through the hall, calling for debate on a matter that has consumed the empire's heart for weeks. The question of grain supply from Egypt. The Nile has flooded irregularly this year, and shipments have been slow to arrive. Hungry citizens grow restless, and the mob in the Forum whispers rebellion. The fate of peace rests upon trade routes, harvests, and the delicate egos of men who believe themselves gods. You listen as older senators rise, their gestures broad and theatrical, their words sharpened by years of practice. Cicero's ghost still haunts this chamber, in every polished argument, in every carefully calculated pause. You, too, have learned this art. When your turn comes, you rise with practiced grace, feeling the weight of dozens of gazes fixed upon you. You speak not of fear, but of stability. You remind them that Rome's strength is not in conquest alone, but in its ability to feed, to govern, to endure. You weave logic and emotion together as deftly as any general commands legions. Some nod, some sneer. The truth of Rome is this: persuasion is a currency, and every word you spend costs you a favor, a friend, or a future ally. The debate drags on. Tempers flare. A senator from Hispania accuses another of hoarding wealth, of bribing merchants to manipulate prices. The Curia erupts into chaos, shouts, insults, fists pounding on benches. The consul bangs his staff, demanding order. But this is order, you think. This is the heartbeat of Rome. Loud, proud, divided, yet unbreakable. By midday, sweat clings to your neck. Your voice has grown hoarse. Still, you stand your ground, countering arguments, offering compromises. A motion is passed, barely. Egypt will send additional shipments. The Senate will fund new granaries near Ostia. It is a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The murmurs soften. Some senators clap you on the shoulder as they pass. Others glare, plotting their revenge in silence. When the session ends, you step out into the blinding light. The Forum stretches before you, columns gleaming, statues of gods and heroes casting long shadows over the cobblestones. You breathe deeply, tasting the dust and the heat of the empire's heart. The city roars around you, alive with gossip and ambition. But even as you walk home, past temples and markets and marble fountains, you cannot shake the thought that Rome, like her Senate, is always on the edge of collapse. Power here is fragile, built not on stone, but on the shifting sands of men's pride. And yet, beneath it all, you feel an unshakable sense of purpose. For you are part of something eternal. Rome may change, emperors may rise and fall, but the Senate endures, and so do you. Evening falls slowly over the city, and with it comes a change in the rhythm of life. The harsh glare of political struggle gives way to the soft glow of oil lamps, to the murmur of conversation over cups of wine. The Senate may have adjourned, but the true business of Rome, the quiet negotiations, the whispered promises, has only just begun. Your villa lies on the Esquiline Hill, its gardens perfumed with laurel and rose. Slaves hurry through the corridors, lighting torches, arranging cushions, pouring Falernian wine into polished bronze goblets. Guests begin to arrive, fellow senators, military officers, and the occasional poet or philosopher invited to lend wit and grace to the evening. You greet them with a practiced smile. Hospitality is a weapon, too, though gilded in charm and laughter. To feed a man well is to make him indebted. To flatter his pride is to make him pliable. Around your table, conversation flows like the Tiber, broad, winding, and filled with hidden currents. The dishes are extravagant: roasted quail drizzled with honey, olives from Hispania, figs from the eastern provinces. Musicians play the lyre softly in the background, and the fragrance of spiced incense drifts lazily through the air. Yet beneath the splendor lies purpose. Every toast, every jest, every carefully chosen compliment serves the same end: to build alliances that will outlast the night. One guest, a general newly returned from Germania, speaks of the wild northern tribes. Another complains of the Praetorian Guard's growing arrogance. You listen, nodding, offering a word here, a question there. It is not what you say that matters, but what you learn. Influence is built in silence as much as in speech. As the night deepens, the laughter grows louder, the gestures broader. Wine loosens tongues, and truths spill out like coins dropped from careless hands. A senator leans close, his breath heavy with drink, and confides his worry that the emperor grows suspicious of the Senate's unity. You feign surprise, though you've heard the same from 3 others this week. Rome's power is a web of secrets, and you, patient as a spider, wait at its center. At last, the feast wanes. Servants clear the table, torches burn low. You step into the cool night air, your head buzzing, not from a wine, but from the unspoken bargains sealed in laughter. Above you, the moon hangs over the city, silvering the rooftops and marble temples. From here, you can see the Forum faintly illuminated, the Colosseum's shadow vast and dark against the skyline. Rome sleeps, but never truly rests. You, too, are weary, but your mind races with calculations. Tomorrow, new intrigues will rise with the dawn, but tonight, under the eternal moon, you have done what every Roman statesman must do: turned friendship into strategy, and pleasure into power. The afternoon sun burns high over the marble courtyards of Rome, gilding every column and statue in molten light. You, a senator of this great empire, step back into the heart of the Curia Julia, the Senate House, its heavy bronze doors groaning as if burdened by the weight of centuries. The hall smells faintly of wax and papyrus, and the low murmur of conversation rises like the sea before a storm. It is the pulse of Rome itself, beating through the veins of its most powerful men. You move toward your marble seat, your toga trailing across the polished floor. Around you, senators gather in clusters, arguing in Latin tones that sound like sharpened steel, measured, cutting, controlled. Each word is a weapon, each pause a calculation. On this day, Rome debates law, justice, and the nature of power itself. As you sit, your scribe unrolls a fresh scroll, inkpot at the ready. The voices grow louder, One senator argues for leniency in taxation toward the provinces ravaged by flood. Another demands the army's pay be raised. A third warns of rebellion in Hispania. You listen, weighing their words as if balancing a sword. When your turn comes, you rise. The room quiets, save for the sound of rustling fabric. You speak not as a man seeking glory, but as one who remembers the dust of battlefields and the cries of the poor. You talk of Rome's strength not in her legions or her gold, but in her laws, the invisible cords that bind citizen and empire alike. The Republic, you say, is not built upon conquest alone. It endures through order, through justice, through the faith that law stands above any man, even an emperor. A silence hangs, dense and heavy. Some nod, others sneer. The younger senators fidget, their eyes darting to the marble busts of old consuls and generals that line the walls, silent witnesses to this eternal struggle between power and principle. When the vote concludes, your proposal, to grant temporary reprieve to the provinces, passes narrowly. The sound of agreement is a ripple through the air, and you feel, for a brief moment, that Rome itself breathes easier. Outside, you step into the forum. The streets teem with life, merchants crying their wares, children chasing one another between columns, a priest sacrificing incense to Jupiter. Overhead, banners flutter crimson and gold. The air smells of olive oil, sweat, and ambition. You know that within these streets, decisions made in the Curia ripple outward like waves, shaping lives, destinies, the rise and fall of futures. But even triumph feels transient. You walk toward the Basilica Emilia, where clients await your counsel. They bring petitions, grievances, requests for patronage. A farmer begs remission of debt. A soldier's widow pleads for her son's citizenship. Each story is another fragment of Rome's vast mosaic. You listen, one ear tuned to mercy, the other to caution. As twilight seeps into the city, torches alit along the Via Sacra. You pause at the foot of the Temple of Saturn, watching the smoke rise into the violet sky. From here, the Forum glows like a living tapestry, its arches, statues, and temples casting long shadows that stretch toward eternity. A fellow senator approaches, his face grave. There are rumors, he says, of plots in the provinces, whispers that certain generals grow too ambitious. The empire's borders, as ever, are restless. You exchange few words, for in Rome, truth often travels cloaked in silence. Later, in your domus, you dine sparingly. The day's debates echo in your mind as distant thunder. You look upon your writing desk, covered in scrolls, sealed decrees, and drafts of new proposals. The lamplight trembles over ink and parchment, over your hand as it begins to write again. You pen not orders, but reflections, a record of conscience in an age of power. You write of law as light and burden both, of how justice, once lost, cannot be easily reclaimed, of how the Senate stands not merely as a council of men, but as Rome's fragile heart, still beating beneath marble and ambition. When you finally rest, the city murmurs beyond your window. The Tiber flows black and slow beneath the moon, carrying with it the secrets of the capital. Somewhere in a tavern near the docks, sailors sing of far provinces. In the Palatine, soldiers patrol the shadows of palaces. Rome never sleeps, only shifts its weight beneath the stars. And you, one senator among hundreds, feel the enormity of your place within this living empire. You are both master and servant of the laws you uphold. Tomorrow, another debate will rise like the sun, and again you will speak, write, and wrestle with the ghosts of power, for that is Rome's eternal rhythm, to rule, to reason, to endure. Morning returns, not with calm, but with the restless pulse of politics. The marble corridors of the Curia echo, once more with footsteps and murmured schemes. As you make your way toward the Senate, the air feels heavier than usual, as if the very stones of Rome have begun to carry secrets. You pause by a statue of Julius Caesar, its expression both serene and knowing. History breathes through these walls, and you can feel it watching you. The past is never truly gone in Rome. It lingers like incense in a temple, sweet and suffocating. Every senator carries the ghosts of old empires upon his shoulders. Inside, the chamber thrums with tension. The emperor's advisors are present today. Men cloaked not in togas, but in authority. Their presence a reminder that Rome's power no longer lies purely in the Senate's voice. You sense unease ripple through your peers. Some shift in their seats. Others keep their gaze fixed on the mosaic floor. The session begins. A decree is proposed, new taxes for the eastern provinces, justified as reforms for imperial stability. You recognize it for what it is. Another grasp by the emperor's hand to tighten control, to remind the Senate who truly rules. You listen as the debate swells like a storm. Voices rise, fall, clash. One senator argues for loyalty, another for caution. A few brave souls question openly, too openly, and you can see the advisor's eyes narrow in the shadows. When your turn comes, you speak carefully. You praise the emperor's vision, but gently suggest moderation. You cloak truth in diplomacy, as every wise senator must. Rome's greatness, you say, has never come from fear, but from balance. Let us not tax loyalty into silence. For a heartbeat, the hall is still. The words hang in the air like a drawn blade. Then the advisors murmur to one another, their expressions unreadable. The motion passes, but amended, softened. You have walked the knife's edge, and for now survived. When the session ends, the senators disperse in tight clusters. You linger, your thoughts heavy. Near one column, two younger senators whisper, glancing toward the imperial envoys. You catch fragments, names, suspicions, something about a letter intercepted from the provinces. The whispering grows more frequent in recent days, like cracks forming in a marble statue. Outside, the forum gleams under the midday sun, but even its brilliance feels brittle. Rome is glorious, yes, but beneath that glory, the foundations tremble. You make your way toward the Basilica of Julia, where the city's legal minds gather. A trusted friend, a jurist, meets you there, his face drawn. He speaks low. Rumors spread of arrests in the night, of traitors accused of corruption, of senators vanishing without trial. His voice trembles when he says what you've already begun to suspect. The emperor fears the Senate's shadow more than its words. You return home under the weight of the revelation. Your villa feels quieter than usual, the fountain subdued, the servants subdued in their movements. You notice how even silence can feel watched. At your writing desk, you unroll a scroll of Cicero's speeches, words written by a man who, too, once stood at the edge of power's abyss. His ink feels alive beneath your fingertips. The welfare of the people is the highest law. You whisper the line as though it were a prayer. That night, you cannot sleep. The moonlight pours through your window, pale and cold. Somewhere far below, in the streets, dogs bark and chains clatter. The empire stirs in uneasy dreams. You realize then that power in Rome is no longer spoken aloud. It whispers, it moves unseen, it hides behind marble smiles. You wonder how long truth can survive in such an empire, where loyalty is a weapon and silence a shield. And as dawn begins to bleed across the rooftops, you rise, wrap your toga around your shoulders, and prepare again to walk into the heart of that whispering machine called Rome, because to serve it, to survive it, is the only life left to you. The dawn breaks over Rome in a haze of red and gold, the kind of sunrise that paints even the stones of the Forum with the illusion of warmth. But as you watch from your balcony, you know better. The city is not waking to peace, it is waking to fear. There are new rumors now, darker than before. Names spoken in low voices. Guards seen at doors that should remain untouched. Letters burned before they could be read. You descend the marble steps of your villa, the scent of olive oil and smoke heavy in the morning air. The streets hum with their usual energy, vendors shouting, chariots clattering, the distant chant of priests from the temples. But beneath that rhythm, you sense disquiet. Rome's heart beats irregularly these days. A slave hands you a scroll sealed with wax. You break it open carefully. It bears the emperor's crest. The message is brief. Attendance required at the Palatine this afternoon. No explanation, no greeting, only command. You feel the chill move through you, though the sun already burns hot above the city. The Palatine Hill rises ahead like a monument to divine arrogance. Its palaces gleam in the light, each column and frieze a testament to imperial might. Inside, the air smells of myrrh and authority. You are led through corridors guarded by silent soldiers, past marble statues whose empty eyes follow your steps. Finally, you are brought before one of the Emperor's secretaries, a man with ink-stained fingers and the manner of someone accustomed to wielding quiet power. He greets you with the faintest smile, too polite to be sincere. The Emperor, he says softly, wishes to ensure your continued loyalty. You bow, careful not to speak too quickly. My loyalty has never wavered. Good, he says. Then you will have no objection to aiding us in identifying disloyal elements among your peers. There it is, the poison wrapped in courtesy. You feel it burning at the edges of your mind, the slow corrosion of trust. To betray your fellow senators is unthinkable. To refuse is dangerous. Every path leads into shadow. You choose your words with precision. I serve Rome, you say at last, and through Rome, I serve the Emperor. He studies you for a moment, his gaze sharp as a blade. Then he nods. Excellent. The Emperor rewards those who understand necessity. You are dismissed, though not free. As you walk down the polished halls, you catch sight of your reflection in a bronze shield. You look older than you remember, tired, cautious, distant. Rome ages all its servants this way. Outside, the sunlight feels harsher now. You make your way to the Forum, where the Senate will meet again. Along the steps, two familiar faces are missing. Men who spoke too loudly in yesterday's session. No one mentions them. Silence, after all, has become Rome's new language. In the Senate chamber, conversation is quieter than usual. The air carries tension like the string of a drawn bow. You sit among men who no longer know which allies can be trusted, which glances conceal threat. You exchange polite nods with those who remain, and every smile feels like a mask. The meeting proceeds, but feels more like a ritual than a debate. Decrees are passed without passion, voices muted by fear. When you speak, your words are careful, measured, deliberate, emptied of the fire that once drove you. You are performing politics, not practicing it. Afterward, you walk home through the streets as dusk falls. The golden light of evening softens the marble, but even beauty now feels suspect. You pass the Colosseum, its arches glowing like embers, and wonder if this, too, will someday crumble under the weight of its own power. Back at your villa, the night air brings a chill. You sit by the oil lamp, unrolling an old scroll, a copy of Seneca's writings, the philosopher who served and died under Nero. You trace his words with your finger. He who serves power must always remember that power serves no one. You close your eyes. Outside, thunder rumbles over the hills. Rome continues to shine, even as it begins to rot from within. And you, a senator once proud, now live in the shadow of the laurel, honored, but suffocating beneath its weight. You wonder if the empire you helped build will outlast the truth it silences. The night stretches over Rome like a velvet shroud, thick with smoke, whispers, and the faint tang of incense lingering from the temples. In the darkness, the city does not sleep. It waits, coiled and watchful, a predator poised upon its own history. From your window, the flicker of distant torches traces the streets below. Shadows stretch and mingle, indistinct and threatening. Somewhere a dog barks, but even that sound feels calculated, a punctuation in the silence of suspicion. You walk through the gardens of your villa, each step careful on the cool stone paths slick with dew. The olive trees, gnarled and ancient, seem to lean toward you, their branches casting spidery patterns across the marble. Your mind returns, unwillingly, to the day's meeting. The Senate chamber, once a theater of debate and eloquence, now feels like a cage of whispers. Every nod and smile had been an act, every word a weapon restrained by fear. You remember the two absent faces, and a shiver travels down your spine. Silence in Rome has become more eloquent than any speech. It is a language of its own, fluent, merciless, and dangerous. A servant enters quietly, placing a small cup of wine on your desk. You lift it with a hand that trembles only slightly, the dark liquid reflecting the flickering lamplight like a pool of night. Your thoughts wander to the Emperor, to the corridors of the Palatine Hill, to the polished marbles and ink-stained fingers of his secretary. Loyalty is demanded here, but to whom? To Rome, to the Emperor, or to survival itself? The question circles your mind like a vulture over a carcass, inevitable and chilling. You unroll another scroll, a letter from an old ally, one whose handwriting you recognize despite the long absence of intimacy. The parchment is thin, fragile, edges curling, and the words are cautious, fragmented. Trust is a currency Rome no longer affords. Watch the shadows, the Praetorians. Do not speak of what you see. The lines are taut with fear, each syllable a warning. You feel the weight of the message settle over your chest, a stone pressing down on your lungs. It confirms what you already know. The rot beneath the golden veneer runs deeper than any senator is willing to admit aloud. Hours pass. Outside, the city's sounds diminish into murmurs. You hear the distant splash of the Tiber, the creak of a cart, the faint echo of laughter from taverns that continue regardless of the tension thickening the air. In the quiet, your memory drifts, moments of Rome before it became a theater of eyes and suspicion. You remember the festivals, the triumphs, the voices of citizens that were once free to rise and fall with conviction. Now, even celebration has been muted, weighed down by the invisible hand of authority. A sudden knock breaks the stillness. A messenger stands at your door, hood drawn, eyes cautious. He hands you a small, folded note sealed in black wax. You break it open. No crest, no formal greeting, just a single sentence, sharp and deliberate. Meet at the Temple of Vesta, midnight, alone. The words are a spark thrown into dry tinder. You feel the pull of dread and curiosity in equal measure. To go is dangerous, yet to ignore it could be fatal. You pace the room, the scrolls and oil lamps casting shadows that seem almost to stretch toward you, conspiratorial. The city outside slumbers, yet everywhere you sense eyes. The walls of your villa no longer feel protective. They feel like witnesses. Hours later, as the moon rises over the Palatine, silvering the marble in cold light, you step into the streets. Rome is transformed under the nocturnal glow. Familiar streets unfamiliar, allies potentially enemies, every corner a question mark. The air is sharp, scented with wood smoke, wet stone, and the faint metallic tang of the Tiber. You pass under archways that seem to bend slightly, as if leaning to hear your thoughts. Every footstep echoes like a drumbeat announcing danger. At the Temple of Vesta, you find the courtyard empty, save for a single figure standing in the shadows. The priestess of the flame, known more for her discretion than her sermons, steps forward, her face hidden beneath a veil. She gestures silently, and you realize that even here, in the sanctum of the eternal fire, Rome's fear persists. The night air seems to thicken, pressing against your skin. She watches. The priestess whispers, voice barely audible over the rustle of leaves. Not the fire, not the gods, but those who command from above. All who seek the truth must choose carefully. The meaning hangs between you like a blade. You consider the Senate, the Palatine, the vanished colleagues, and the endless calculus of survival. Choice in Rome has become a matter of inches, shadows, and timing. You realize that to live, to retain honor even in name, may require more than loyalty. It may require cunning, patience, and perhaps a kind of ruthlessness you never imagined yourself capable of. The night deepens. The eternal flame flickers, casting moving shadows across your face. You stand alone, the city sprawling endlessly behind you, and for the first time in many days, you wonder if Rome is not merely a city, but a mirror reflecting every ambition, every fear, every compromise you have ever made. And in that reflection, you see the cost of survival, the weight of power, and the slow, inexorable decay of all that was once noble. As you turn to leave, the first faint hint of dawn touches the horizon. red and gold, as it always does. But today, it feels like the city itself is bleeding, not shining. And you walk home, knowing that the path ahead will be long, dark, and fraught with the same choices Rome has always demanded of its servants: to bend, to endure, or to fall. The moon dips lower over Rome, casting elongated shadows that stretch across the stone streets like dark fingers reaching for those who dare walk unguarded. You leave the Temple of Vesta behind, every footstep echoing against the empty courtyards, as if the city itself is watching, weighing your decisions, predicting your movements. The night air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and distant rivers, and each breath you draw feels laden with history and threat alike. Rome sleeps fitfully, though you know it is never truly asleep. It dreams with eyes wide open, and those dreams are sharp enough to wound. You walk past the Colosseum, its arches glowing faintly under the moonlight, and you wonder how many triumphs and deaths it has borne witness to. How many oaths whispered in its shadows have led to ruin. The city feels alive in ways it has never been, but the life it exhibits is tense, charged with fear, ambition, and suspicion. Every passerby, every shuttered window, every flicker of torchlight could conceal intent, and you feel the weight of possibility pressing against your chest like a stone. Returning to your villa, you pause at the edge of the garden, staring at the olive trees that twist and lean with age. You remember the senator you once were, the man who walked through Rome with certainty, who believed in honor, in discourse, in the slow arc of justice. That man feels distant now, as though buried beneath layers of compromise, calculation, and dread. You touch the bronze railing of your balcony, feeling its cold hardness beneath your fingers, and wonder whether Rome has changed you, or merely revealed what has always been inside. Inside, the flickering oil lamps cast uncertain light across your collection of scrolls and texts. Seneca, Cicero, Tacitus. Names that once inspired you now feel like fragile anchors in a storm. You roll out another scroll, carefully, almost reverently. The inked letters speak of philosophy, of power, of endurance. But tonight, they feel like mirrors rather than guides. The words are no longer abstract. They are warnings, lessons to be navigated in real time. You trace them with your finger, imagining the faces of senators, of secretaries, of friends now lost or absent. A soft knock interrupts your thoughts. The servant enters, hesitating before placing a small box at your feet. It is unmarked, sealed with a simple ribbon. No message accompanies it, no hint of origin. You kneel to open it, and inside lies a small, ornate dagger, its blade catching the lamplight like a line of liquid silver. The handle is engraved with the symbol you recognize, a mark of one of the secretive orders rumored to operate within Rome. Men whose loyalty is to shadow itself rather than to law, to throne, or to any god. The message is clear without words. Choose carefully, or perish. You sit in silence, the dagger in hand, the weight of its presence a physical reminder of the stakes that now govern every choice. Survival is no longer a matter of rhetoric or strategy alone. It is a matter of perception, of instinct, of knowing who to trust, when to move, and when to remain still. Each decision is a thread in a web spun by invisible hands, a web that tightens with every sunrise. The hours pass with agonizing slowness. You consider allies, rivals, the absent senators, the whispers in the Palatine corridors. Each recollection is like a stone tossed into the water. Ripples radiate outward, reaching places you cannot see, influencing outcomes you cannot predict. You understand that Rome itself is a kind of mirror, reflecting ambition, fear, and corruption back at every citizen, challenging each to reconcile their ideals with the brutality of reality. And yet, despite the dread, despite the ever-present tension, you feel a spark of determination. The city may demand obedience, it may thrive on surveillance, it may reward treachery, but it is still Rome. Its stones hold memory, its temples hold secrets, and its people, somewhere beneath layers of fear, still possess courage. You rise from your chair, leaving the dagger upon the desk, and make your way to the balcony. The horizon shows the first hints of dawn, pale and fragile, as if the sun itself hesitates to rise over a city so burdened by shadows. You gaze across the forum, imagining the voices that will soon fill it, the debates, the subtle maneuvers, the silent oaths that will shape the course of power. You feel the weight of your role, not merely as a senator, but as a participant in Rome's vast, intricate, and merciless story. The day will demand decisions, will demand loyalty, will demand cunning, and above all, it will demand endurance. The city stirs below, unaware of the thoughts turning in the hearts of its servants, and for the first time in many nights you smile, not for comfort, not for hope, but for recognition. Rome is a living entity, capricious, relentless, and magnificent. To serve it is to dance on a blade, to navigate a labyrinth without walls, to walk in both light and shadow simultaneously. And you, senator and witness, will do so. Always, for as long as breath and wit allow. The light grows stronger, brushing gold across marble and bronze, warming the air, yet failing to dispel the tension. Rome awakens to another day of intrigue, another day of choices measured in whispers and glances. And you, standing upon the balcony, feel the weight of eternity pressing gently upon your shoulders, the weight of a city that has survived centuries and will survive 1,000 more, if only its servants can endure its relentless demands. The dawn breaks reluctantly over Rome, the first shafts of sunlight trembling across the marble streets like hesitant fingers. The city itself seems to exhale slowly, though beneath the surface, tension simmers like a hidden spring. You stand upon your balcony once more, gazing down at the forum, where the echoes of past debates haunt the steps and columns. Each stone seems to carry the memory of ambition, betrayal, triumph, and ruin. The wind carries a faint scent of incense and smoke, mingled with the metallic tang of the Tiber. It is a scent you have come to associate with power, with the price it demands, with the silence that follows a whispered threat. Rome waits, and so do you. Inside your villa, preparations have already begun. Servants move quietly, carrying scrolls and messages, with eyes alert to every sound. You handle each letter, each note, with meticulous care, understanding that a single misstep can cascade into calamity. The dagger you received from the secret of order lies hidden beneath your toga, a reminder of the dangers that shadow your every action. You have come to accept the duality of your existence, outwardly calm, disciplined, and loyal, inwardly tense, calculating, and aware of the deadly currents that swirl around you. The streets below are slowly waking. Chariots clatter against stone, vendors call out in ragged voices, and the distant chanting from the temples carries faintly through the morning air. Yet the energy is different today. It is not the vitality of a city at peace, but the cautious movements of citizens who have learned the language of fear. Faces are turned downwards, eyes watchful, hands clenching and unclenching at the sight of those in power. Even the sunlight seems tempered, unwilling to illuminate too clearly the secrets of the city. You leave your villa at mid-morning, the weight of your toga heavy upon your shoulders. Each step toward the Senate is a study in observation and control. You note the familiar faces, measuring each glance, each gesture, each fleeting expression. Allies, rivals, possible enemies. Rome has trained you to perceive the invisible lines of loyalty and treachery. And today, these lines are more dangerous than ever. 2 absent senators are still unspoken of, and their absence serves as a silent warning to all who might dream of dissent. The Senate chamber looms ahead, its massive doors adorned with bronze reliefs depicting Rome's victories and divine patronage. You enter, greeted by the quiet murmur of voices subdued by fear. The chamber has become a theater of restraint. Every debate a delicate dance of words, every statement a potential misstep. The emperor himself does not appear, but his presence is palpable, felt in the stiff postures of the secretaries, in the guarded glances of the praetorians, in the unspoken understanding that loyalty is tested daily, invisibly, and sometimes fatally. Today's session is no ordinary meeting. Rumors have spread of discontent in the provinces, of murmurs of rebellion among legions who once pledged unyielding fidelity. Your mind races through the implications. The Emperor's power is immense, yet fragile, dependent upon perception as much as force. You know that every word spoken here, every vote cast, will reverberate far beyond these walls. And you know, too, that your own choices will leave indelible marks upon the tapestry of Rome's future. When your turn to speak arrives, you rise carefully, measuring the tone, the cadence, the subtle cues from your peers. You speak of stability, of loyalty, of Rome's enduring greatness, but each phrase is layered, a careful negotiation between duty, self-preservation, and quiet resistance. You watch the reactions closely. Some eyes betray understanding, others flicker with doubt, suspicion, or concealed fear. Every response is a clue, every movement a map of the political terrain you must navigate with utmost precision. By midday, the session adjourns, but the real maneuvering has only begun. Outside the chamber, whispers proliferate like a virus. Allies approach with cautious words, bearing hints, warnings, and veiled suggestions. You listen carefully, storing each fragment of information. Even as you navigate these networks, your mind returns to the absent senators, to the messages from secretive orders, to the dagger hidden beneath your toga. Each element threads through the day like a tensioned cord, a reminder that Rome's safety and your own survival are intertwined, inseparable, and precarious. As evening approaches, you retreat to the quieter streets near the Tiber. The city is bathed in gold and crimson once more, but the beauty is tinged with the knowledge of what it conceals. Shadows gather, corners grow darker, and the sense of being observed, measured, and judged intensifies. You pass under arches and between statues, each form reminding you of the lineage of power and the inevitability of decay. Even the gods seem distant tonight, their temples silent, their altars empty. Then a figure steps from the shadows. Cloaked, hooded, moving with quiet confidence, they approach. The dagger's previous warning comes to mind, and your hand brushes the hidden weapon instinctively. The figure halts a few paces away, voice low, almost ceremonial. Rome watches you, they say, not merely for loyalty, but for insight. Those who survive the city's trials are those who see beyond what is spoken, beyond what is done. Are you prepared to see, Senator? To act where others hesitate? You consider the weight of the question. To act is to risk everything. To hesitate is to invite ruin. And yet, the fires of resolve ignite within you, tempered by experience, sharpened by observation, strengthened by the inevitability of survival. I am prepared, you reply, to see, to judge, to endure. For Rome, the figure inclines slightly, as though satisfied, and retreats into the darkness. You remain, listening to the night sounds, the lapping of the river, the distant clatter of carts, the occasional cry of a sentinel. Each sound is magnified, charged with possibility, a reminder that Rome is alive, not merely in its buildings or streets, but in its people, its ambitions, its fears. Night deepens, and the moon rises again, pale and unwavering. You return to your villa, to the balcony, to the collection of scrolls, letters, and secret tools that have become your arsenal. The city sleeps fitfully, yet beneath that sleep, gears of power turn ceaselessly. You contemplate your role, your decisions, the webs you have navigated, and the paths that still stretch ahead, twisting, uncertain, and fraught with peril. In the solitude of your chamber, you unroll the scroll from Seneca once more. His words echo through your mind, resonating with the clarity born of experience. He who serves power must always remember that power serves no one. Tonight, the meaning crystallizes. Power is not a shield, nor a comfort, nor a prize. It is a constant, living test, demanding vigilance, judgment, and endurance. And yet, you feel an unexpected serenity, not because the dangers have vanished, but because you understand them. You see the rhythms, the patterns, the forces at work in Rome. You have walked among shadows, confronted threats both subtle and overt, and emerged with understanding, with purpose, with clarity. You recognize that survival is not mere luck. It is comprehension, strategy, patience, and courage. Outside, the first light of dawn begins to pierce the horizon. Rome awakens, a city of stone, smoke, ambition, and fear. You step onto the balcony, gazing out across the city you serve, the city you navigate, the city you both love and fear. You feel the weight of eternity pressing down, not oppressively, but as a reminder of the continuity of life, power, and history. The streets stir. The forum fills once more with senators and citizens, each playing their role in the eternal drama. You descend toward the city, toga flowing, mind sharpened, eyes alert, ready to engage, to endure, to act. Rome demands nothing less. And for the first time in many long nights, you feel certain not of safety, but of purpose. To survive Rome is to navigate its light and shadow. To endure Rome is to understand it. And to serve Rome is, ultimately, to become part of its pulse, its memory, its endless, inexhaustible story. As the sun rises fully, bathing the city in red and gold once more, you step forward into the streets. Every glance, every word, every decision now carries the weight of eternity. The city is alive, and so are you alive, vigilant, unbroken, and ready for whatever Rome demands next.